Hey guys, tonight we're slipping, quite literally, into one of the least glamorous but oddly fascinating jobs of the ancient world. You're a sewer worker in Imperial Rome, and your office, the miles-long, city-straddling Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer. Not the most aromatic career choice, sure, but without you the Empire might drown in its own triumphs. You probably won't survive this job for more than a few years without a limp or a mystery rash, but tonight, that's not your concern. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from and what time is it over there? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up just before sunrise, though you wouldn't know it by looking around. Light doesn't reach your sleeping nook beneath the city. You've tucked yourself into a small crevice in the tunnel wall, the scent of wet stone, mildew, and a hint of something dead guiding you gently into consciousness. The air is cool and damp. You hear the trickle of water echoing through arched channels and the distant squeak of a rat. Maybe Flavius, the one you've named. He's probably older than you and frankly wiser. Stretching your back sends a few joints popping. Your cot is a slab of wood suspended on bricks to keep you above the usual waterline. It's not much, but at least it's yours. The Cloaca Maxima is massive, one of the engineering marvels of ancient Rome, a system of vaulted tunnels and drains that carries the city's waste to the Tiber River. Historians still argue whether it was primarily designed for sewage or as a flood control mechanism, but either way it's now your home and your office. You step into your worn leather sandals, once reinforced with bronze nails that have mostly rusted out. The soles squelch in the thin film of something slippery coating the tunnel floor. The scent shifts as you move, something between cabbage, vinegar and betrayal. You inhale through your mouth. Big mistake. It's going to be one of those days. Grabbing your simple tools, a hooked rod, a bucket and a hand rake, you begin your shift. No time cards here. Just daylight and your supervisor Gaius, yelling if you're late. He's a former legionnaire, bald as an egg and twice as cracked. You hear his footsteps coming down from one of the street grates above, sharp, echoing, impatient. You navigate past side channels, stepping over half-rotted boards laid across narrow trickles. The cloaca is big enough in most places to stand upright, with curved ceilings stained in bands of mineral deposits. The walls are surprisingly sturdy, lined with stone and mortar, some sections over 400 years old. This place has outlasted most emperors. It'll probably outlive you. You pass a shrine wedged into a niche, just a rough stone face with a coin or two stuck at its base and some dried flowers. Probably a local's offering to Cloacina, the goddess of the sewer. That's right, even Rome's underbelly had a deity. People prayed for smooth flow, clean drainage, and maybe for their refuse not to return during storms. As you slosh forward, the tunnels begin to hum with activity. Your fellow workers, shadows at first, materialize in torchlight. Each one carries the same resigned expression, the same hunched shoulders. Lucius gives you a sleepy nod, his beard matted with who knows what. Tullia, one of the few women on the crew, wipes sweat from her brow already. Her curly hair tied with a strip of linen once white now, let's say, well-aged. You join your section's crew in what you've lovingly dubbed the coffee chamber. Not because there's coffee, you wish, but because the water here bubbles like a hot brew when backed-up pressure releases. The walls are warm from the flow beneath. It's a good place to start the day. Gaius appears above on a walkway, barking down orders in a voice that could strip plaster. West sector needs clearing. 2 amphorae worth of blockage. You groan collectively, which is how sewer workers say good morning. As the group disperses, you stay back for a moment, checking the usual crevices for unusual debris. You found interesting things here over the years. Rings, combs, one time even a stylus with the name Julia etched in tiny letters. Who was she? Did she drop it by accident while writing poetry in a latrine? Or was it tossed in a fit of heartbreak? That's the quiet mystery of the sewer. It hears everything, sees everything and carries it all away, along with the occasional chamber pot. A thin mist coils through the tunnel as warmer air from above meets the damp coolness down here. Your stomach grumbles. Breakfast will have to wait. There's work to do, and by now, you're ankle deep in yesterday's problems. You finally get a chance to sit down, if squatting on a damp crate while gnawing a brick of barley bread counts. Breakfast is fast and firm, the way it's always been. Bread, a few wrinkled olives, and a tiny strip of goat cheese that's more rind than cheese. You chew thoughtfully, staring at the slow current passing just a few feet away, imagining all the banquets above that led to this murky stew. A few others settle nearby. Lucius slumps against the wall and pulls out a hunk of dried fig from his tunic like it's treasure. Tullia mutters something about needing new boots, lifts one grimy foot, and reveals a sandal holding on with what looks like wishful thinking and a leather string. Someone lets out a low belch. It's the closest thing you'll get to a morning toast. As you eat, you stretch your back. Sewer work isn't just filthy, it's physically brutal. Every day you crouch, bend, haul buckets of sludge, swing a rake through clotted runoff, and occasionally wrestle something that used to be an animal. Your shoulders ache from the awkward angles and your knees crack when you shift. You're not even 30, but your body creaks like a ship in stormy waters. You once tried padding your tunic with old wool to soften the burden. It just soaked up the water and smelled worse. No one tried it again. The Cloaca Maxima isn't uniform. Some areas are spacious, with vaulted ceilings high enough for a cart to pass. Others are low, claustrophobic. You remember the first time you crawled through a side tunnel barely wider than your shoulders. The stench was a physical presence, like a wet blanket draped over your face. You thought about quitting. Then you remembered what quitting meant, probably working the tannery or cleaning the amphitheatre latrines, which somehow seemed worse. Tool time. You set your breakfast aside and retrieve the hand rake. It's a heavy, forked tool made from old bronze and iron. Not exactly cutting-edge tech. The Romans pride themselves on their aqueducts, their roads, their architecture, but sewer tools? No one's updated them since the Republic. You also carry a curved scraper, useful for dislodging build-up on stonework. You affectionately call it the Persuader. The workday begins in earnest. You and your team move to a junction known as the Meeting Bowl, a rounded chamber where several waste channels converge. It sounds elegant, it's not. Today's task is to remove a clog of mixed materials from the west wall sluice. Mixed materials in sewer speak mean something disgusting, vaguely mysterious, and potentially sentient. As you trudge over, Gaius leans down from a street-level grate above and yells, "Watch for gas pockets today. Had a statue of Vulcan blow over yesterday." Excellent. You reach the west wall, where the trickle has turned into a stagnant puddle. The clog is real. Bits of straw, fish bones, wine pulp, and something fluffy that might have been a feather boa, or possibly a very confused bird. Your team digs in, literally. Lucius wedges the rake in and pulls up a glob that slaps the ground with an unpleasant squelch. You follow with the scraper, pushing debris into the central flow to be carried away downstream. The air thickens. You cough. Everyone coughs. It's not just foul, it's dense. Like soup. Gaius was right. There's gas down here. Methane from decomposition. Maybe sulfur from nearby cesspits. Some tunnels were shut last year after a torch explosion. Historians still argue whether those incidents were the result of poor airflow design or just centuries of unpredictable build-up. Either way, you now keep your torches low and your expectations lower. You take turns scraping and scooping until the water finally moves again with a gurgling sigh. Victory. A modest, soggy, smelly victory. You lean against the wall, panting. The stone is cool against your back and you let yourself rest for a moment. The flicker of torchlight reflects in the greasy water, casting jittery shadows. You close your eyes and pretend it's a river under moonlight. Almost peaceful. Almost. Then a rat scuttles across your foot. You jerk upright and let out a hiss. Lucius laughs. That's old Claudius. He's got a nest in the fourth vent. You glare at the rat, who pauses as if insulted, then vanishes into the gloom. One worker pulls a small wooden charm from his neck and kisses it. It's a token of Fortuna, goddess of luck. You've seen others carry similar talismans. Some pray to Pluto, others to Mercury. You've got a carved shell in your belt pouch from your grandmother. She told you it would keep evil spirits from entering through drains. It hasn't worked yet, but hey, it's tradition. By midday your hands are blistered, your sandals are soaked, and your arms feel like they're filled with wet clay. But the flow moves again. The chamber echoes with trickling success, and for a moment all seems right beneath Rome. Back above, the world of senators and silk traders spins in elegant circles. But you? You're elbow deep in runoff from last night's orgy? Or maybe it was a fishmonger's retirement party? Hard to say. Either way, someone upstream has been overly generous with grape skins and oyster shells, and you're the lucky recipient. You and Tullia are assigned to patrol a stretch of narrower channel just off the Subra district. A lively, overbuilt neighbourhood packed with insulae, Rome's version of apartment complexes. As you squeeze into the side tunnel, your knees graze moss-covered bricks slick with condensation, and your boots squelch in half-set muck. You duck beneath a low arch and suck in your breath. This part of the Cloaca Maxima is like a forgotten intestine. To pass the time, Tullia tells a story about her cousin who fell through a public latrine seat into the flow below. Landed flat on her back, she says. Had to crawl out with one sandal and a bad attitude. You laugh, though it's hard to picture anything worse than your current spot. You shine your torch ahead. The light glints off slick walls and writhing threads of mould that seem to recoil from the heat. The smell here is different, sourer, almost sweet. You wrinkle your nose. Dead pig, you mutter. Tullia sniffs. Nah. Wine shop runoff. The bad stuff. She's probably right. The alley above is known for its cheap taverns, most of which pour more vinegar than vino. Suddenly you spot movement. A sluggish flow trying to squeeze through a lopsided pile of refuse. It looks like someone dumped an amphora full of pickled eggs and forgot the lid. Bits of cracked pottery, pulped herbs, and possibly a discarded sandal clog the bend. You reach for your rake, and just as you start clearing, something brushes past your hand. You freeze, then it surfaces. A bloated frog, wide-eyed and floating sideways like it's seen too much. You both pause in silence. Lucky omen, Tullia says flatly. Says who? Me. Just now. You laugh again. Humour is survival here. You can't take things too seriously, or you'd never crawl back in the next day. Once the channel is clear, you both mark the wall with a wax stencil to note the cleaning date. Maintenance crews like you record your path through the tunnels using symbols, arrows, dates, sometimes cheeky graffiti. You leave behind a crude sketch of a frog on a throne. Tullia approves. The Cloaca Maxima isn't just a sewer, it's a record of Rome's belly. You've seen rings, keys, teeth, even a child's doll half buried in sediment. Historians still argue whether dolls like those were mere toys or carried spiritual meaning, guardians for children perhaps, or symbols buried with the dead. You just know they're creepy when they bob to the surface in the dark. You and Tullia finally exit the narrow section into a broader vault. Here the walls stretch up into graceful arches, and a shaft of daylight filters through an opening far above. The air is marginally better, more moving water, less trapped gas. You take a minute to rest. You lean back against the stone, close your eyes, and listen to the faint rush of the Tiber not far off. Tullia tosses a pebble into the flow. Ever wonder if the Emperor knows what this place is like? You open one eye, only when he drops his ring in it. Rome thrives because of this artery beneath her feet. The baths flow because of you. The fountains sparkle because of you. The vomitoria drain? Well, you get the idea. You're the janitor of the Empire's digestion. Still, it's not all grime and gloom. There's a quiet sort of satisfaction in your work. You make things move. Without you, Rome would drown in itself. That thought has kept you crawling through sludge more than once. Overhead, voices echo from the streets above. You can hear the clatter of hooves, the hawking of dates, the distant cheer of gamblers at a dice stall. Up there, life is golden mosaics and embroidered togas. Down here, it's wet tunics and sore feet. But the rhythm is the same, Rome pulsing through every layer. You and Tullia begin to make your way back toward the main chamber. You take turns scraping build up from side walls as you go. She hums a song, something about a sailor and a goat. You hum along, even if you don't know the words. The acoustics down here are surprisingly good. If you squint, you can almost pretend you're in a bathhouse, reclining on heated marble, instead of ankle deep in old stew. Almost. Back at the main chamber, you meet Lucius and Gaius again. Gaius has found something in the flow. He holds up a small, polished charm shaped like a dolphin. You all gather around to inspect it, turning it over in your muddy hands. Temple offering, Lucius guesses. Child's toy, says Tullia. Rich man's lucky bauble, you offer. Historians still argue about objects like these, tokens that turn up in drains and rivers, often deliberately tossed. Were they lost, discarded, or offered to river gods for favour? You decide this one's a gift to Neptune and place it gently on a nearby ledge, as if honouring a little piece of someone else's story. The sun's moved higher now. A shaft of light cuts through the ceiling grates sparkling on the water, making the whole tunnel look like it's lined with gold. For a moment the sewer doesn't seem so grim, just alive. Ancient, yes. Rank, certainly. But alive. And somehow, so are you. The smell hits you first. It's more than just the usual ripe cocktail of damp earth, aged human waste and yesterday's festival runoff. No, this is something else. Something foul enough to make you squint in the dark and pause mid-step. You wave your hand in front of your nose as if that'll help. Tullia notices your hesitation. Yeah, she says. That's the temple drain. Been backing up for days. Of course. The temple of Venus Erycina, one of the older ones perched just uphill, is known for two things: overwatered gardens and lavish feasts that end in rather enthusiastic vomiting. You brace yourself and descend further into the affected side channel. Down here the air grows thick, heavy with mildew and the tang of fermenting fruit. You duck under a low stone arch, your torch barely casting enough light to see the sluggish brown swirl moving toward you. Welcome to a day in the temple's digestive tract. First order of business, finding the source of the backup. You wade in ankle deep using your long-handled rake to prod the edges of the channel. Bits of rotted grapeskin cling to your boots. Something that was once a garland of flowers floats lazily by, now more slime than stem. Tullia taps the wall. Here, drain outlets up there. A carved spout juts from the wall, a lion's head, elegant once, now sniffling sludge through its broken nose. The drain's mostly blocked with a mat of wilted herbs, chicken bones, and what looks suspiciously like a whole eel. You groan. They sacrificed seafood again, didn't they? Tullia nods. Eel's sacred to Venus, or was, not anymore. You set to work clearing the blockage and the stench immediately intensifies. The eel rolls loose, lifeless and bloated, belly up in protest. As you pry loose the rest of the blockage, a thick bubble of gas bursts upward and pops near your face. You gag. Tullia doesn't flinch. Breathe through your mouth, she advises, and pretend you're in gall. It's moments like this that separate lifers from quitters. Most newbies last a week, 2 if they're stubborn. But the truth is, this job has its rhythms, and once you fall into them, you stop noticing how terrible things smell, mostly. The drain clears with a loud glug, and the water picks up speed, flowing freely again. Success. You both lean against the wall to rest, dripping with temple juice. From above, faint bells chime. It's noon. That means lunch for most of Rome, roasted dormice if you're lucky, watered wine, flatbread with olives. You fish a packet of stale chickpea mash from your satchel, and try not to get sewer water on it. Too late. As you chew, Tullia shares a rumour about a senator's daughter who's taken to bathing in rosewater and tossing the used petals down the temple drain. So they reach the underworld. You both snort. Sounds like something a senator's daughter would believe. Still, you've seen stranger things. Tiny carved charms, severed locks of hair, even a scrap of gold-leafed parchment once, though it disintegrated the second you touched it. Historians still argue whether these offerings to the cloaca were purely practical or carried spiritual weight. Was this Rome's subconscious shedding its dreams into the dark? You wonder what archaeologists will make of your chickpea mash wrapper in 2,000 years. Probably mistake it for a burial shroud. You rise, brushing your hands clean on your tunic, which is already beyond redemption. One more drain? Tullia sighs. Only if you promise not to name the next eel. Too late. That was Claudius. The next drain is easier, just some windblown leaves and bits of plaster from a crumbling facade. Still, it makes you appreciate Rome's weird commitment to ritual cleanliness. Public baths, aqueducts, sewers, it's all connected. The average Roman bathes more than you'd expect, though mostly for social reasons. Actual soap? Not so common. Olive oil, scraped off with a strigil, does the trick, and you'd better hope no one above dumps their used oil too quickly. Those gushes can knock you over. As you and Tullia cross a slippery bridge of boards laid over the main flow, you glance up. Through a small oculus in the ceiling, you see the edge of the temple roof glinting in the sun. A white dove lands there for a moment, looks around, then flies off. Bet it never sees the eel drain, you mutter. Back in the main channel, you spot Lucius and Gaius again. Gaius is singing. Badly. Something about a baker's daughter and a goat. You wonder if every sewer worker ends up writing songs about goats. Lucius, ever the pragmatist, is patching a crack in the wall with a clay seal. We'll need mortar here by week's end, he says, without looking up. Tullia adds it to her wax tablet. It's part of the job. Mark the damage, notify the overseers, and then hope they send someone with actual tools instead of just another poet with a rake. You pause to stretch your back. The weight of the day is starting to press on you. Your shoulders ache, your knees feel like boiled beans, and your boots have soaked through. Still, you're oddly proud. You've tamed a rogue temple drain. You've fished out Claudius the eel. You've earned your stale mash. Rome in all her glory struts above, but you keep her feet dry. By early afternoon, the trickle of sunlight above has shifted, casting long shadows through the occasional grates that dot the ceiling like forgotten windows. You trudge deeper into the underbelly of Rome, boots squelching with every step, shoulder to shoulder with Tullia, as the day's heat above begins to bake the streets, bringing with it a fresh batch of runoff into your ever-thirsty drains. You're headed toward the Subura outlet now. This one's notoriously finicky. The Subura district, wedged between the Palatine and Esquiline hills, is loud, crowded, and never entirely clean. It's home to butchers, taverns, public baths, and more than a few temples to oddly specific minor gods. Naturally, everything they discard ends up here, funneled into the belly of the Cloaca Maxima like soup ingredients poured into a boiling cauldron. You reach the main convergence point, a rounded chamber where 6 different channels meet. It echoes like a public latrine, the sound of dripping water magnified into a soft percussion all around you. The air here is warmer than usual and wetter too, the floor is slick. Tullia taps your arm and gestures. A large pile of rags has wedged itself against one of the drainage grills, except those aren't rags. Is that a tunic, you ask, squinting? She nods. And a sandal too, actually. You both stare at the mess. This isn't a typical blockage. Clothes in the sewer usually mean one of 3 things: drunken accident, failed burglary, or, well, sometimes people just vanish in Subura. It's that kind of neighbourhood. You reach forward with your rake and gently tug the fabric. It peels away with a wet slop. No bones, just soaked linen and the unmistakable reek of last night's cheap wine. Tullia sighs in relief. Just another toga party gone sideways. You wonder aloud, do you think the toga walked itself here? Probably rolled downhill in shame. You clear the mess, piece by piece, revealing a wooden spoon, a broken amphora handle, and oddly, a carved dolphin figurine missing its head. A small shrine, perhaps. Historians still argue whether household idols were deliberately discarded during times of crisis, or simply lost to floodwaters and faulty craftsmanship. Either way, it's strange what ends up here. Above you, voices echo faintly. Children running, merchants shouting prices, someone arguing about bread. The city pulses above, utterly unaware of the ballet happening beneath its feet. Sewer workers, dancers of sludge and debris. You glance up through a grate and spot a cat peering down. It blinks, yawns, and walks away. No respect. Once the junction's clear, you make your way to a maintenance alcove just off the main chamber. It's a cosy space, if you're generous. A bench carved into the stone offers a place to sit, and someone scratched a crude version of Emperor Augustus's profile into the wall. His nose is far too long. This is where you catch your breath. You sip from your flask, lukewarm barley water, gritty but hydrating, and offer some to Tulia. She declines, munching on dried figs from a wax paper bundle. You talk shop for a bit. Which areas are worst after rain? The forum floods like a toddler's bathtub. Which temples have the smelliest runoff? Neptune's, surprisingly. Whether the new aqueduct will improve water pressure or just add to the chaos, Tulia thinks it'll burst within a month. You nod. More work for you. Then, inevitably, someone brings up the eel again. I still say we should have given Claudius a proper burial, Tulia teases. You chuckle. Too dignified. He died as he lived, blocking progress. Time to move on. You check the next section of your route, and it's a low tunnel, barely tall enough to crawl through. These are the worst, stuffy, silent, and littered with things no one should ever see twice. Flip a coin for who goes in, you suggest. No need. Tulia pulls out a leather head wrap and ties it snug around her braids. I've got smaller shoulders. She disappears into the dark with a grunt, her torch casting jumping shadows against the walls. You sit on the edge, listening for curses, coughing, or laughter, all of which usually mean she's alive and kicking. Minutes later, her voice echoes out, "Found a rat the size of a toddler." Did it have a name tag? No, but it stole my fig. Ah, the local wildlife. Rome's sewer rats have a reputation, not just for size but for audacity. They've been known to nest in helmet crests and chew through sandal straps. Some sewer workers swear they're organised. You're not sure if they mean socially or militarily. Tulia emerges, brushing cobwebs from her sleeves. Tunnel's mostly clear, just smells like someone dumped a cheese cart in there. Fancy cheese or tragic cheese? Cheese with opinions. You both laugh, and for a brief moment you forget your knees ache and your boots squish. Back in the main tunnel, you pass an old warning scratched into the wall. Beware the ghosts of sewage past. You're not sure if it's a joke or not. Some of the older workers claim the cloaca is haunted, especially near the ancient Etruscan sections. You've never seen anything, but once you did find a skeleton holding a coin purse. You left it untouched, just in case. You've got a few hours of light left and plenty more drains to check. But for now, as the torchlight flickers against mossy stone and the sound of running water fills the space like a lullaby, you feel oddly peaceful. Tulia stretches and yawns. 2 more tunnels, then we're off to the baths? You nod. As long as no one sacrifices another eel. You move north now, following a lower grade runoff line that trails toward the Tiber. The sun is descending, which means the heat of the day has begun to taper off, above ground at least. Down here the air holds onto its warmth like a sleepy dog refusing to move. The walls sweat with condensation, and your torch casts a long, wobbly halo as you lead the way. The scent in this section shifts, less acrid, more mouldy, a damp, composty smell. This usually means a blockage involving vegetable waste, likely from the nearby market near the Porticus Aemilia. That's where produce vendors discard unsellable squashes, bruised olives and cabbage leaves that smell like regret. You and Tulia follow the scent like unwilling bloodhounds. The tunnel narrows slightly, and your shoulder brushes against the curved brickwork. These stones were placed here centuries ago, originally by Etruscan engineers. Their handiwork still holds up, remarkably. Historians still argue whether the earliest phases of Rome's sewage system were truly Etruscan in origin, or simply inspired by them. Either way, you're walking on the work of ghosts. You spot the pile before you reach it. A congealed, muddy pyramid of turnip ends, crushed fig skins, cracked terracotta, and, why not, a doll's head with a lopsided smile. A fitting guardian of this humble plug. You prod it with your rake, it shudders, then holds. This one's stubborn. Time for the drain claw, a long hooked contraption with a bit of rope and iron teeth. You pull it from your belt and lean into the blockage like a gladiator facing a particularly bland opponent. Behind you, Tullia hums a nursery song. The lyrics are lost to time, but the tune, light and slightly off-key, makes you smile. It's oddly comforting, standing in a pile of rejected vegetables while your colleague sings about goats falling into fountains. Eventually the blockage groans and shifts. The gout of water trickles through, followed by a louder glug. You step back just in time as the entire mass sluices down the pipe, vanishing like a bad memory into the depths. A breath of cleanish air rushes past you and you take it in greedily. Tullia claps once. Another heroic rescue, Suorus Maximus. I live to fight soggy produce. You both chuckle, though not too loudly. You've learned to be quiet in the tunnels, not out of fear, but habit. Sound travels oddly here, bouncing back at strange angles, sometimes sounding like footsteps when no one's near. You pause near a curved wall with a high arch and a moss-covered inscription. It's in Latin, though only half legible. Constructa sub auspices, publica salus, cloaca maxima. Built for the good of the people, you murmur, tracing a finger over the stone. Public sanitation is the noblest of causes, Tullia says with mock grandeur, lifting her torch like a sceptre. A soft splash echoes behind you. You both freeze. It's probably nothing. A rat, a frog, one of those mysterious sewer cats that defy explanation. But there it is again, a splash. Then a gurgle. You edge forward, peering down the next tunnel. It's partially flooded, water pooling up from a low point. In the centre of the water, something bobs. You step closer. Oh, you say. It's a wooden chair. A full three-legged broken-backed chair floating serenely in the dark water. No idea how it got here. No idea why. But it bobs with a strange rhythm, like it's keeping time with some ancient sewer heartbeat. Did someone try to flush a throne? Tullia whispers. Maybe it's symbolic, you reply. The chair twirls slowly. You don't disturb it. Instead, you divert the water around it using a side valve. Just one of many mechanisms scattered throughout the cloaca, a system of wooden sluice gates and carved stone channels. Most people above ground don't even know they exist. They assume magic or the gods, or, worse, civil engineers keep everything flowing. The flow shifts. The pool drains slightly. The chair settles into the muck with a gentle sigh. Rest well, chair, you say solemnly. Beyond this flooded section lies an open channel known as the Singing Drain. Why the name? Because the wind slips through a narrow vent up above, creating a high-pitched hum that varies by season. Some say it's just air pressure, others claim it's the spirits of engineers past warning about improper tiling angles. Today the tune is steady, high and clean like a reed flute. You and Tullia walk beneath it in silence, the sound washing over you like a lullaby. Eventually you emerge into a slightly wider chamber where the walls are covered in soot. Fires were once set here centuries ago to burn out blockages. Not the safest solution, obviously. One misjudged ember and the gas build-up could flatten a neighbourhood. You think about that. About how many layers lie between this dripping darkness and the bustling world above. A loaf of bread sold in haste. A fish tossed in anger. A slipper dropped by a child. All of it ends up here, eventually. You reach into a catch basin and retrieve a small carved token. One of those theatre passes given to commoners during festivals. The mask on it is comic, smiling grotesquely. You pocket it. Maybe for luck. Tullia finds a piece of bone, smooth and pale. Human? She asks. You squint. Chicken? She pockets it anyway. Sewer charms come in all shapes. You finish clearing a few more side grates. Nothing dramatic. Just the usual assortment of street runoff, lost things, and the occasional philosophical question, like why a copper hairpin ends up in the same tunnel as a wagon wheel spoke. By the time you're done, the torches burn low and your knees crack every time you crouch. Baths, you ask? Definitely baths. The two of you turn back, leaving behind the tunnels that stretch endlessly in every direction. The Cloaca Maxima goes on and on. You've only ever seen a fraction, and you hope it stays that way. Too much of this place, and you start to dream of dripping ceilings and chairs that float without reason. Still, there's comfort here too, in the rhythm. In the quiet heroism of guiding other people's waste away without thanks or notice. In the strange things you find. In the company you keep, and in the music of a sewer that sometimes sings. You and Tullia emerge into twilight, blinking, stretching, and smelling like composted legends. The evening breeze hits your face like a blessing. It's cooler now, and above ground, the city seems lighter, more relaxed. Rome has a rhythm, and you've rejoined it. The baths aren't far. You know a public complex just off the Forum Boreum, a modest one. Not one of those massive, echoing imperial constructions. Just a few tubs, a caldarium barely large enough for 4 people, and an old man named Lucius who guards the soap like it's made of silver. You approach the doorway and nod to Lucius, who sniffs once and lets you through without a word. Sewer workers don't get charged. Nobody wants to argue with someone who wades through what you've waded through. This isn't generosity, it's survival instinct. The steam greets you immediately, curling around your ears like sleepy whispers. You shed your tools, your tunic, and the weight of the day. The bathwater is cloudy from a dozen other lives, but you don't care. It's warm, it's quiet. You sink in like bread into soup. Tullia slides in across from you, her hair loose now, her expression soft. For a while you both just soak. Then, casually, she says, "You ever wonder where it all goes?" You know what she means. The sewage, yes, but also everything else. The lost letters, the crushed garum pots, the gold ring that slipped off a finger and found its forever home in a storm drain. Downhill, you say. She smirks. That's one answer. You think for a moment. Then, I think it becomes part of the story. Ours. Rome's. She swishes the water with one hand. I like that. After the bath, you dry off with a threadbare cloth that's somehow always damp, and dress in your spare tunic. You leave your work clothes in a pile. Lucius will burn them. A kindness, really. Your next stop is dinner. You head toward a street lined with taverns. Not the touristy ones with carved boar heads above the door. No, your place is tucked into a crooked alley and smells like lentils and garlic. It's called Culina Nocturna, the night kitchen. Probably a joke from some long-dead poet. Inside, the warmth is instant. Low ceilings, flickering oil lamps, a cat that may or may not be stuffed. The owner, Flavia, waves you to your usual bench. She doesn't speak much, but she has a gift for soup. Tonight it's barley and chicken foot, with bread that crunches and a cup of wine diluted just enough to stop your brain from spinning. As you eat, you listen to the voices around you. Traders complaining about grain weights, a woman arguing with her brother about whether goats dream, a drunk man insisting he once saw a ghost in the Tiber wearing a senator's toga. Historians still argue, you murmur, whether ghosts are fashion conscious. Tullia laughs into her cup. This is the other half of sewer work, the re-entry, the act of being human again, of stepping out of the underworld and back into a world of smells that don't cling, of light that doesn't flicker on walls slick with slime. You help Tullia finish her bread, she always leaves the crust. Then you part ways. She heads uphill to her aunt's house, where she sleeps in a broom closet with a parrot that says filthy every time someone opens the door. You head downhill toward the Aventine. Your lodging is simple, a single room in a domus shared by 6 other workers. Your bed is a wooden frame with rope slats and a wool-stuffed sack that pretends to be a mattress. But it's yours. And, crucially, it doesn't smell like turnips anymore. You lie down and feel every joint sigh in relief. Outside, a cart rattles by. Somewhere a flute plays a tune you almost recognise. The city settles into itself. You stare at the ceiling and think, no dramatic battles today, no thrilling escapes or toga-clad scandals, just waste and water and the soft music of a life most never think about. And that's fine, because someone has to keep it flowing, and tomorrow you'll wake up and do it again. You roll to one side, close your eyes, and try to guess whether you'll find another floating chair. Odds are good. Your rest is short-lived. The first light of dawn slips through the cracked shutter of your room like a hesitant visitor. You stretch stiff limbs, rubbing sleep from your eyes, and prepare to descend once more into the labyrinth below. The morning air smells fresher now, yet when you reach the sewer entrance, a familiar mustiness greets you. You flick your torch to life, its flames sputtering before steadying, and slip down the stone steps. You notice the walls are damp with a faint green sheen. Algae, or maybe something less friendly. Historians still argue whether these tunnels ever had natural microbial ecosystems, or if they were completely sterile, which might be a bit hopeful. You and Tulia meet at the usual junction. Today the task is less about clearing blockages and more about inspection. The city has ordered maintenance on the Aqua Appia aqueduct's drainage outlets, and you're assigned to check the valves and sluices for wear. Walking along, you note the layers of sediment in the water, a slow accumulation of dirt, limescale, and the occasional ancient coin. The aqueduct water, fresh but tainted by runoff, mixes here with everything else. You scoop some water in your hand and let it slip through your fingers, watching how it picks up the torchlight. Tulia remarks, "I heard a rumour that some Romans added crushed oyster shells to their mortar to make it stronger. Wonder if that helps down here?" You nod. It does. The shells react with the lime and form a kind of cement that hardens underwater. You pause at a valve that's sticking. The iron is rusted, but it still works. You hear the faint clunk of metal grinding against metal, and wonder how many hands have adjusted this gate before yours. A narrow side tunnel catches your attention. It's smaller and more recent, probably a repair or extension. Inside, the walls are rougher, less polished. Bits of pottery shards jut out, pressed into the mortar. Someone, likely a hurried worker, used whatever was at hand to patch this section. You carefully test the water flow. It's slower than it should be. A slight pooling forms, which could lead to stagnation if left unchecked. "This is the kind of thing the city hates hearing about," Tulia mutters, pulling her cloak tighter. You work together, dislodging a build-up of sediment with a hooked rod. The water gushes free, splashing cold on your boots. You wonder briefly if the aqueduct builders ever imagined their work would one day be monitored by sewer workers. Walking back, you pass a faintly lit alcove where a small shrine once stood. The stone altar is cracked but still dignified. Romans loved their minor gods and spirits, especially those of thresholds and boundaries. The Cloaca Maxima itself was said to be under the protection of Cloacina, goddess of the sewer. You drop a coin into the alcove, a gesture half for luck, half for respect. Historians still debate, you say softly, whether Cloacina was a real deity or just a polite personification of the sewer's power. Tulia smiles. Either way, I'm hoping she's on our side. You continue your rounds, noting the clever design of small sediment traps built into the floor, meant to catch heavier debris before it could block the main flow. This ancient foresight saves hours of work. The dampness in the air thickens as you approach a junction where several tunnels merge. Here, the water rushes louder, and the echo of dripping forms a steady rhythm, like a natural metronome for your day. You pause to listen, savouring the moment. Even in the depths there's music. You step over an old, mossy stone slab. Beneath it lies one of the city's oldest manholes, a reminder that, beneath all the grime and toil, you're walking through history. Soon, your work is done for the day. You climb the steps back into sunlight, blinking against the brightness. Tulia nudges you. Another day closer to freedom from the sewers. You laugh, but you know you'll be back. The city's bowels are endless. and someone must keep them clear. For now, you breathe in the morning air and prepare for the world above. The afternoon sun hangs low and golden as you make your way through the bustling streets, your clothes still faintly scented of the sewer's damp embrace. You pass vendors hawking figs and olives, children chasing one another in circles, and senators in togas too stiff to move without assistance. The world above seems light and careless, almost mocking the grime and grit that cling to your skin. You head to the forum to meet a contact, a man named Gaius, a clerk who handles the city's sanitation records. He's not glamorous, he wears a stained tunic and smells faintly of vinegar, but he holds keys to information you need. At a shadowed corner table he spreads out scrolls and maps. His eyes gleam when he talks about drainage statistics and maintenance schedules. A peculiar passion, but you appreciate the detail. Gaius tells you that the city council is considering expanding the sewer system to accommodate Rome's ever-growing population. He points to a sketch of planned tunnels running beneath the Subura district, notorious for its crowded, noisy streets. You know, he says, lowering his voice, there's talk of installing a new flushing mechanism, something involving water jets. You raise an eyebrow. Flushing? Like in toilets? He shrugs. Historians still argue whether the Romans ever developed proper flushing toilets, or if it's just a myth spread by later writers. You chuckle. Well, I can tell you, if such a thing existed, I haven't seen it. Gaius smiles. It's a dream then, a luxury for the future. You pore over the maps, noticing the tunnels snake beneath temples, bakeries, and even the houses of patricians who likely never spare a thought for what flows beneath their marble floors. Among the plans, you spot an odd notation, an underground garden proposed near the Aventine Hill. The idea is to grow medicinal herbs in specially designed air shafts that bring light and fresh air down to the plants. An underground garden, you muse aloud. That's new. Gaius nods. The city hopes it will provide fresh air and some healing herbs to the workers, maybe even make the tunnels less unbearable. You imagine it. A patch of green life flourishing amidst the darkness, a quiet rebellion against the grime. As you leave, Gaius presses a small bundle of dried herbs into your hand. For the smell, he says with a grin. You tuck them into your tunic, grateful for a small comfort. Walking back through the city's labyrinthine streets, you think about how the sewer system is more than just waste disposal. It's a living, breathing part of Rome. A hidden network of survival, stories, and occasionally, dreams. You glance up at the sky as the sun dips lower, painting the clouds with soft pinks and purples. The day's work feels a little lighter, knowing there's always a next chapter beneath your feet. Night falls softly, and with it comes a different kind of quiet. You find yourself wandering toward the Circus Maximus, where the echoes of cheers have faded and the dust settles on the grandstands. It's a place of spectacle and energy by day, but by night it's a silent expanse under the stars, perfect for reflection. As you stroll, you spot a group of workers gathered around a small fire near the entrance to a side tunnel. They're roasting chestnuts and swapping stories, their laughter mingling with the crackling flames. You join them, the warmth seeping into your chilled bones. One of the men, a burly fellow named Marcus, begins recounting a tale about an ancient sewer inspection gone wrong. Something about a swarm of bats that caused a chaotic evacuation. You listen, the story punctuated by exaggerated gestures and amused grins. Did you know, Marcus says, that some Romans used vinegar as a disinfectant in the sewers? It wasn't exactly pleasant, but it helped keep the smell down. You nod. Historians still debate how effective those early sanitation methods really were, but vinegar certainly had its fans. Someone passes you a cup of watered-down wine. You take a sip and let the liquid settle the day's grime and fatigue. The conversation shifts to odd laws. Apparently there was a decree forbidding people from urinating within a mile of the Forum, no doubt to protect its marble and prestige. The irony isn't lost on you. A young woman pipes up, and yet here we are, spending hours beneath it, dealing with what everyone else avoids. She's right, of course. The work you do is necessary but invisible, the hidden backbone of Rome's grandeur. As the fire dies down, you feel a deep connection with these comrades. People who face the same challenges, who share the same jokes about floating chairs and clogged tunnels. The night air grows colder and you rise to leave. The stars overhead are silent witness to your quiet camaraderie. Walking back to your lodging, you think about how these moments, the shared laughter, the small rituals, are the light that balances the darkness you navigate below. Tomorrow the sewers will call again, but for now you carry the warmth of friendship and the soft glow of the fire into your dreams. Morning's chill wakes you gently, and as you prepare for another descent you notice your hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the weariness that comes with repetitive toil. Today, your task is unusual, investigating a rumoured ghost haunting one of the older tunnels beneath the Palatine Hill. The story has circulated among workers for weeks. A strange, flickering light, eerie sounds and shadows moving where no one should be. Skeptics dismiss it as superstition, but you know better than to scoff at such tales outright. You light your torch carefully and enter the narrow passage. The walls here are rougher, the mortar cracked with age and the air heavier. Water drips steadily, creating a steady, calming rhythm. As you move deeper, the shadows dance, your torchlight catching on uneven stone and pools of stagnant water. You recall how Romans believed spirits could linger in places of decay or neglect, and how some workers left small offerings to appease them. Suddenly a faint glow flickers ahead, a pale, wavering light, neither torch nor lantern. Your heart quickens. Could it be the ghost? Approaching cautiously, you discover a patch of phosphorescent fungus growing on the damp walls, emitting a faint bioluminescence. It casts an otherworldly glow, enough to spark stories of hauntings. You chuckle quietly. Historians still debate whether such fungi were common in Roman sewers or just later embellishments. You collect a small sample, curious about this natural phenomenon hidden in the depths. Nearby, you find an old piece of parchment wedged in a crevice. A faded notice from a long-forgotten engineer detailing maintenance schedules. A ghost of bureaucracy, if you will. The tunnel widens, revealing ancient stonework that hints at a time before the Cloaca Maxima's grand design. A patchwork of smaller drains gradually unified over centuries. You pause to admire the craftsmanship, marvelling at how the Romans engineered such infrastructure with limited technology. The ghost fades into memory as you continue your work, the eerie tale replaced by a quiet respect for nature's surprises and human ingenuity alike. Emerging back into daylight, you carry with you a small mystery solved, and the reminder that even in the sewers, the unexpected awaits. Back below, you find yourself near the Tiber River's confluence, a wet, noisy place where the city's sewage meets the flowing water. The smell here is stronger, the sounds louder. Water splashing against stone, occasional clanks from unseen mechanisms, and distant cries of waterfowl. This area is tricky. The river's rise and fall affect the sewers, and during heavy rains, flooding can send wastewater back into the streets, a problem the city constantly battles. Today, you're here to inspect the sluice gates designed to prevent such backflow. These iron gates open and close with the river's movement, allowing sewage to flow out but blocking river water from returning. You test the mechanisms, feeling the resistance of rust and the slickness of algae on the handles. It's hard work, requiring patience and strength. Nearby, a small otter darts through the shallows, an odd sight in the polluted waters. You remember reading that some Romans kept otters as pets or used them for fishing assistance, though you doubt any of these animals thrive here. You think about the city's complex relationship with the river, both a lifeline and a threat. Walking along the edge, you notice remnants of ancient fish traps, stone enclosures built to catch river fish. A clever design, but probably not so pleasant for the fish themselves. Historians still argue how much the Romans understood about water pollution and its effects on health, you muse aloud. Despite their engineering prowess, disease outbreaks were common, partly due to contaminated water. You clean debris from the gates, careful to avoid slipping on the wet stones. The work is grimy and tiring but vital. As you finish, you watch the sunset cast a fiery glow over the Tiber, the river reflecting gold and crimson streaks. It's a moment of beauty in an otherwise grimy day. You wonder if the river knows all the secrets it carries beneath the city. With a final glance, you head back toward the tunnels, ready for whatever awaits in the depths. You awake to the soft sounds of dawn and the distant clatter of carts on cobblestones. Today, you're tasked with assisting the aqueductus inspectors, those rare folks who ensure the aqueducts still deliver fresh water to Rome's fountains, baths and homes. As you make your way toward the arches towering above the city, you pass through neighbourhoods still waking up. Bakers tending ovens, women sweeping steps, and children chasing chickens. The aqueducts are impressive, miles of stone channels carrying life's essence across valleys and hills. You admire their arches, each one a testament to Roman engineering and the city's thirst. Your job is to check the drainage points where excess water and sediment are released into the sewers. The connection between clean water delivery and waste disposal is delicate. A failure could poison the city. You kneel by one outlet, feeling the cold, clear water mixing with darker runoff. The smell here is surprisingly fresh compared to the tunnels below. An inspector tells you about an old belief that certain water sources had healing properties. People would flock to springs thought to cure ailments, though whether this was true or placebo remains debated. You pause, thinking of the underground garden Gaius mentioned earlier. Perhaps more than a whim, a hope for wellness beneath the city. The inspector shares a quirky fact. In some parts of Rome, residents believed that dropping a coin into a fountain guaranteed good fortune. Early wishing wells, if you will. You smile, imagining modern tourists doing the same, unaware they're part of an ancient ritual. As the sun climbs higher, you help clear debris from the channels and note any signs of wear. Historians still argue whether the aqueduct's maintenance was more a triumph of organisation or a constant battle against nature's forces. As you finish, you look up at the towering stone, water trickling with a soft rhythmic murmur, a lullaby of civilization. You head back to the city, feeling connected to the vast unseen network that sustains daily life. The grandeur above and the grit below, both vital, intertwined. The evening settles softly as you prepare for your final task of the day, checking on the latrines scattered throughout the city. These communal facilities are hubs of both necessity and gossip, places where Romans gather to share news, or occasionally scandal. You enter one such latrine near the baths, a stone bench with carefully spaced holes carved into it. The design encourages social interaction, with users seated side by side, engaging in quiet conversation as the water beneath carries away the refuse. You reflect on the hygiene practices of the time. Romans used a sponge on a stick, shared among users, to clean themselves, rinsed in a bucket of water. The thought makes you grimace, but it's an early attempt at sanitation. Historians still argue how effective these shared sponges were and what diseases might have spread as a result, you mutter. You overhear a conversation about a peculiar law forbidding latrines near temples, thought to maintain sacred purity. Walking away, you pause to consider the strange blend of privacy and community these spaces fostered. Latrines were not just practical but social centres, a concept that might seem odd to us now, but suited Roman life. As the sun dips below the horizon, you feel the day's labour winding down. Your thoughts drift to the countless unseen workers like yourself who keep Rome functioning, their efforts unnoticed but essential. You make your way back through quiet streets, the city's heartbeat slowing as night embraces it. Tomorrow will bring more tasks, more tunnels, more stories beneath the surface, but for now, rest calls gently and you answer. The night wraps around you like a soft blanket as you settle into your modest quarters. The day's grime begins to wash away with each breath, and your muscles unwind from hours spent crouching, climbing and hauling. You think back over the hours, the tunnels, the water, the smells. both terrible and strangely comforting in their consistency. You recall the faces of your fellow workers, the camaraderie born from shared hardship and hidden beneath layers of grime. Outside, the city sleeps, unaware of the vast network beneath its feet, the arteries and veins that carry away what must be forgotten and kept out of sight. As you prepare for sleep, your mind drifts gently to the river's flow, the flickering fungi light, the distant laughter by the fire near Circus Maximus. These are the moments that keep you grounded. You realise the city's heartbeat is not only in its marble temples and bustling forums, but in the quiet persistence of those who toil unseen. Historians still argue the true origins of the Cloaca Maxima, whether it began as a simple drainage ditch or a carefully planned marvel, but one thing is certain, it shaped Rome's destiny. You smile softly, grateful for your place in this vast story, an uncelebrated but vital thread in the fabric of an empire. Now, as the city's night air cools and the stars wink overhead, you close your eyes, letting the gentle rhythm of water flowing through stone lull you toward rest. Tomorrow's tunnels will wait, but for now, you are home. As you drift, know that beneath every grand city lies the hidden toil of those who keep its lifeblood flowing. Rest easy, dear listener, and let the soft night carry you gently onward. Sleep well.